Quick background just into public in general, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about kind of how we think about growth and onboarding, also especially because we have a certain social layer around it, and so I thought that might be an interesting little thing to talk about. And also, so a little bit of a preview now, which is a feature that hasn't launched until next week, so feel free that this is the very massive group NDA, or how you want to view that. Cool. So as public, we're on the mission to accelerate all people's prosperity by making the public markets accessible for everyone, which is kind of like our lofty mission statement, so to say, which hopefully comes across in the very expensive domain name we own, which is public.com. I think when you kind of dive into that, is one thing that we've realized is that really all kind of finance services that you have were always kind of something that you really do for yourself, right? It's your account, you log in, you browse around, you're alone with your charts, right? And if you have your Vanguard thing, you log in there once a year to get your financial statements for your tax return, and that's kind of it. And when it comes to financial literacy, it really comes from either you trying to educate yourself or by you talking to your parents who might have invested or your financial advisor at Chase Bank. And so what we really think is that by basically building a kind of like a social layer around the stock market, we can help people to just to basically like create more self-education and also make people be able to just like not be alone when they start investing. And so how we think about this, basically, we started off by building this by basically building a zero commission stock brokerage, just like you know it from famous competitors of ours. And then the second piece around it, basically, we built this like second layer, which is the ability to trade or to invest in fractional shares on a like instant basis, right? So real time, no batching until the next day, and you don't know what the price is, but like real time fractional investing. And that really is for us more of a stepping stone in order to be able to create a social experience around the stock market in the first place. Because the one reference we're always using is that if you would have only been able to kind of send yourself $500 increments and Venmo back and forth, that thing would have never gone viral. And another reference is like if you look at something like Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in general, which is more of like a modern day asset class, right? That thing kind of like the two kind of like attributes there is like number one, it was born fractional, and number two is that it immediately had some sort of community around it, right? And so then the third layer we basically built around it is then, okay, so now where you basically really democratize the access to the stock market, now everyone is equal, right? Let's say, you have a $100,000 portfolio over here, you're investing into Google and Amazon, right? $1,800 a share, and I am over here with a $100 portfolio, right? I can completely mimic your investing, so to say. I can do the exact same portfolio that you have. Not from a dollar amount, obviously, but just from the type of contribution that you're putting in. And so that really is the underlying infrastructure you kind of need to build a social layer around it. And so, long story short, so we then basically built a social layer around, which in the current iteration is basically kind of like a feed around it. And so what this also creates is you're kind of creating this like social graph around the stock market, right? So suddenly we can make connections like, who, like what type of person owns what type of themes and merge companies, what kind of person, like how does, for example, like a trade survey like travel throughout the community, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so we often refer to this kind of like if Vanguard and Shopify would have a baby and Spotify would have a baby, right? A public would come up. So just real quick how the app looks like. And so first off, you kind of log in. You have like the more kind of friendly kind of experience, right? So we're not gonna slap the chart right at you, but it's more natural language of like how your portfolio is doing, right? From there you see your positions, and then you can kind of just scroll up to basically go into a feed of activity within the app, right? And you kind of scroll through things. A little video here. And then the second piece really is the fractional aspect. Again, just enables it to obviously invest super fast in companies, right? It's just no thinking about stock prices. You basically just have you just hit the buy button. You have a slider. You say how much dollar amount you want to buy. Just any cryptocurrency, basically. You hit the buy button, and then you're an investor. And then the third piece is really that we basically broke down the stock market by what we call these themes. And so it's like our version of playlists, if you take the Spotify analogy. And so that's really this thing of like if you log into your Bloomberg or whatever, right? Is that the like general categorization is not really how we like how normal people think about the stock market. And the other thing is really that it enables us to kind of group companies also by more personal values, right? So you can invest into things like green energy, you can invest into companies that are led by female CEOs, et cetera, et cetera. And so it really just enables us to kind of categorize the stock market more about personal values than just basically category labels. And then, there we go. And then the third piece is this concept of everyone having a public portfolio, right? So if you now go to public.com/Leif, you can see what I invest in. You have, and so everyone basically has like their own public portfolio. We don't show the dollar amounts of people, but basically the terms of positions you have. And when you buy something or sell something, you can basically opt into posting that to the feed and see, and then kind of like share like your yield, gain, or loss that you had in something. And what this really creates is a sense like if you have that, basically if you like the fractional component really opens up kind of like a first phase of investing that didn't really exist before. Before it was basically either you start to invest because you're kind of thinking of the long term, like I have to think about my savings and retirement now, right? I'm going to do the Wealthfront account, or you're basically going to go like full on day trader and be like, I'm going to pick my stocks and I'm going to like dive deep into it. And so what the fractional aspect really creates is a sense of because you can now buy any stock with any amount of money, the first phase can really just become this thing of, I just want to buy the companies I believe in. And for example, if you're super into basketball, right, you're going to buy Under Armour and Nike and whatever the company is that owns in Madison Square Garden. And therefore also it's much more the things you believe in, much more from the values, like much more values-driven types of investing, and therefore this like vanity aspect of me wanting to show off what I'm investing in and that being me part of my personal brand, kind of like in terms of like putting my money where my mouth is, so to say, becomes kind of like an aspect of your investing journey, so to say, as you get started. So this is a guy who was at Andreessen Horowitz. He did this tweet the other day, which I personally obviously love for obvious reasons. And so the social version of any product is the one that will win in the end. Music, food delivery, banking, it doesn't matter. No category is one until the truly social product takes off. So I obviously agree. But long story short, for us, it's really like if we look at how we build product and how we think about growth and whatnot, we're really looking much more at also social networks. And so it's, and obviously we have our KYC process we have to optimize and all that kind of typical stuff. But it's very interesting that we basically have the ability to kind of steal from the playbook of social networks, right? You see that in the public portfolios, right? Having that portfolio page, having like this link I can put into my Twitter bio suddenly, creates that. But then, on the other hand, it also kind of informs of how we actually acquire users and how we think about acquisition, because it's not just about getting the cheapest acquisition out there with your Facebook ad, but it's also about actually creating community as you do that. And so in theory, obviously, anyone above the age of 18 could be a customer of Public, right? Because then you can have a brokerage account, you can start investing as long as you get approved, you didn't do crimes in the past, right? You should be good to go. And that is obviously massive, right? It's very vague and wide, and we could just go and be like, yes, let's create our lookalikes, dump that into some Facebook audience, and just like pump the money into Facebook ads, right? But the interesting thing is, because we're a social app, we can kind of think about it a little bit differently. And so one thing of how we look at it is this concept called tribes. And so tribes is basically a way of how we kind of group, so to say, people into certain buckets, for as harsh as it maybe sounds, in order to acquire people with a network density. And so network density can mean, hey, we're all at the event here, we all met each other today, right? Therefore, there's a certain network density, people might know each other, whatnot. It can be because people work at the same company. But the other thing that also creates network density is basically people who are either connected by some sort of professional curiosity, right? So we're all in tech and startups, therefore we might be all interested in the newest tech IPOs. We might be all interested in following similar people, for example. Or because we're connected from some sort of personal values. Right? That falls into, hey, we're all into green energy, therefore we want to invest into Tesla and solar power and autonomous driving in general, things like that. And so that then really kind of creates like this kind of play, this kind of like baseline of how we think about who to acquire and how to kind of like build our audience from there. And so we kind of think about it in these like 3 steps, right? So if you're kind of growing a tribe, then one thing first is like, let's get some VIPs on, And so that's something that we're really doing from like a very manual basis. And so getting these VIPs in specific tribes that we're focusing on. I'm not going to share which ones today, obviously, but and so kind of let's get some VIPs on, right? Let's get some people on that have a little bit of street credibility within this industry, within this tribe, right? Whatever it might be. And that really just kind of kickstarts trust for us. And again, as a financial service specifically, right, trust is key. The second thing is then, okay, once we have those guys, let's make sure that we can feature them within the first mile experience of that user. And the third one is really, now let's just go out and try to acquire the rest of that tribe. And so as people go in, you have the immediate kind of credibility. And sorry, so sure you guys know Scott Belsky. He's on the app also. You can follow him, public.com/Scott Belsky. He's the CPO of Adobe. And so like he has this whole thing around the first mile, and he has like whole talks about it and whatnot. And there's this one kind of like paragraph he did, right? So optimize for the first 15 seconds of laziness, vanity, and selfishness. In the first 15 seconds, your visitors are lazy in the sense that they have no extra time to invest in something they don't know. They are vain in that they want to look good quickly using your product. And they're selfish in that despite the big picture potential and the purpose of what your service stands for, they want to know what immediately benefits them. And so what that also kind of means, like in your first experience, how we think about it is that if someone drops off in that first onboarding, in our case, like we just consider them lost, right? If you're closing your first session with like your first session with the app, everything after that is recovery, right? Any push notification we might send you, any email we might send you, this is now recovery work, right? If we didn't get you to become an investor in your first session or get you to connect with your tribe in your first session, basically, we basically lost, right? At that point, it's recovery work. And so the big things to kind of go against it is the sense of, okay, how can we build immediate credibility? How can we build immediate relevancy for you? And how it can be built kind of like show you immediate utility as well. And that kind of goes back to the 3 points in the Belsky kind of quote. And so this is what we're launching next week likely. And it's really basically, again, stealing, so to say, from the playbook of social. It's kind of similar to how more of an onboarding like a Pinterest looks like. And so you come into the app, and then you basically say, okay, here are the certain companies I like, here are the certain people I might want to follow, etc. And that then immediately kind of kickstarts your experience and populates your feed. But also what's happening here is that we can populate this based on the attribution sources of that user. And so if you come from a certain tribe and you come from a certain link, so to say, where you installed the app, right, we can populate that with, for example, Scott Belsky now and some other designers and Adobe as the company, et cetera, et cetera. And so what happens out of that is you come into the app and for the first user experience, you immediately feel home, right? You immediately feel like, oh, this thing is for me, right? I see people that I trust, that I kind of have some credibility, that have some credibility in my space, et cetera. And so that kind of kickstarts your experience there. Exactly. And so then basically afterwards, just as how a feed looks like, right? And so then afterwards, it kind of populates your feed and kind of creates that activation with those people. And so again, what it really does is, number one, the credibility of like, hey, what are the VIPs that were featured there? And so if I come from that attribution source, from that tribe, right? I see people that I already trust, that I already know, and I'll be like, holy shit, I can see what this guy invests in. It's amazing. So that should be the first experience, right? Number two, it creates this immediate relevancy, right? You're immediately realizing that you're coming in and this thing is kind of for you. This is the content that you're, kind of seeking already anyway. And then basically number three, it also therefore kickstarts the utility because companies you might want to invest in are being bubbled up more, insights that you understand from people that have cred in your tribe, are kind of bubbling up more to you, etc. And so long story short, it's basically, hey, it's social credibility plus personal relevancy plus immediate utility. In the end of the day, creates this word of mouth, right? And so by us, is the next slide. Okay, so let's start here. So, but basically by acquiring users with the network density, and the network density, again, coming either from the professional curiosity that connects them, the personal value that connects them, or even the actual physical network, like we work in the same company that connects you. that also again creates a network density. Because if now at Ribbon we would give anyone $20 of free stock, which we should do by the way, then and everyone basically would come onto the app, then obviously people would start talking, they would follow each other, and that kind of has this kind of ripple effect of just kind of kickstarting word of mouth, because you're immediately started kicking off with some sort of network density of the users that you acquired. And that is specifically important for us because the space that we're in, and we're still a very early company, right? So we're post Series A, and so it's really the sense of that we compete with giants, right? Our competitors have very, 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 very deep pockets, right? They run Super Bowl ads and whatnot. We don't have that, and so we cannot, we're just not in the position to just buy our way to success, right? We're not in the position to just buy our way into acquiring people through highly efficient Facebook ads and whatnot. It's just not the luxury we have. And so from that perspective, it's really that the only way of how we can win is to basically aim for the unpredictable. And the unpredictable is the sense of aiming for virality, and virality is very hard to predict. It's very hard to hope that it's going to happen. But one thing that we're seeing is that in a specific tribe, in a specific circle, you can create some hype. And for us, what we would say is that this might be the entire market, right? Again, anyone above the age of 18, people might not know us, but within that tribe up there, we might be the hype thing. And that's kind of what we're then focused on. Because at the end of the day, and that's my little last statement here, at the end of the day is that for us, what we always say is that hype is kind of like the leading indicator for virality. And so by kind of focusing on, you can just recap, by focusing on these more denser networks, you create some word of mouth, you have the ability to create some relevancy, Kickstarter experience, whatnot, et cetera, et cetera. And at the end of the day, what that does for us is we're trying to basically engineer hype based on how we onboard people and be very specific on who we acquire and how we kind of create that network density. That's honestly it. So that was very fast, I guess. But yeah.